Hey guys, it's Albert Harapedian from Arbitrage Real Estate Group. First off, I want to say thank you for the number of emails, calls, and texts that have come to me as a direct result of this fight we're doing to stop rent control in the city of Glendale. Most of you may already know that it's one of the worst things we could ever have in our city, and I'm doing everything I can to fight for it and make sure it's not going to happen. So with that said, thank you very much for all the encouraging emails, texts, phone calls. I'm sorry if I haven't gotten to a very large number of you that have asked me what happened last night. So what I decided to do is make a brief video as far as the summary version of what happened yesterday. The meeting started off just after 6 o'clock and it ended before 1 o'clock in the morning. It was another one of those long carried out meetings, and we sat through it all. We only had 1 minute to speak, each one of us, for the topic of passing the moratorium to put the whole rent freeze. And we were able to make a little bit of headway. Fortunately, we were able to talk to Vartan Garpetyan, Paula Devine, Vrej Agarjanyan, along with Mayor Zara Sinanyan. Unfortunately, Ara Najarian had to be asked to leave since he has some interest in real estate, and for some reason or another, they claim that he has some bias towards this whole rent control thing. He is opposing it, he's still fighting it, but that's a whole second thing that I don't want to get into at this time. So here's what happened with this whole thing. Every council member, including the mayor, has their own perspective as far as what they think is right and what they think is wrong. One thing that they're expressing to me is the fact that they have a ton of these tenants. They're irate, they're angry, they're fed up, they're pissed off, and partly because of some of these new property owners, they're coming in and increasing their rents by over 50%. And as a property owner myself, that's wrong. You don't just take over property, jack up the rates just because that's what the market is, and tell an unfortunate family, pack your stuff up and get out. So those seem to be the more heated tenants, the ones making the issue and the reason why this whole thing has escalated to where it's at. On the most part, I'm happy to say that on the most part, landlords have been actually raising their rents below market norm. And so there are very good landlords out there, and there are landlords out there that respect their tenants, that want to see them stay, and they try to work things out with them. Unfortunately, you have the ones that come in, they blow everything out, and they just want to maximize as much money as possible. All the landlords agree that that is wrong. So we can't have rent control in the city of Glendale. That's the worst possible thing we could have. It's not only going to affect the rental values for these the tenants at the properties, it's going to affect single-family homes, it's going to affect people investing in Glendale, it's going to affect a lot of stuff. So that's the main premise as far as why I'm fighting the way I'm fighting to avoid rent control altogether. The talk about a rent freeze is a form of rent control, and that was actually brought up at the council meeting yesterday, that don't use rent freeze as a way of justifying rent control. It's a way of introducing rent control in the city. Now, Paula Devine was completely against the whole rent control thing. So was Vartan. I would say Paula was a little more than Vartan. Then you have Vrej, who's trying to focus on some sort of way of borrowing $100 million from the city reserve, along with $30 million from what's called Measure S, totaling about $130 million to be applied towards affordable housing during the course of the next 3 years. In the meantime, he was discussing as far as enacting a 5 to 7% maximum moratorium towards the rents that you can't exceed more than 5 to 7%. And if you do, you go through a mediation process to see if you can go ahead and get that justified and have your tenants paying that rent. Now, one thing that's state mandated is the fact that if you want to raise your rents more than 10%, you have to give your tenants 60 days minimum notice. Up to 10%, you can give them 30 days notice. We all know that. We've been practicing that. The problem is, if you want to raise your rents from $1,200 to $2,600, all you got to do is give 60 days notice to the tenant, and they're obligated to either pay that or move out. That's not right. There's not a single property owner, by the way, that's been dealing with this whole rent control thing that has come out and said, oh yeah, we should stick to that and that's fair. It's not right. We're willing to work with them. Now, my brother Victor, he was a proponent with the whole just cause ordinance that took in effect about 12 or 13 years ago. And he has been very instrumental as far as helping both landlords and tenants out. He's handled over 10,000 evictions and among other things, with helping landlords and tenants, defending them in whatever they're going after. Now, he was extremely instrumental. We had about 12 people that gave up their time cards. I went around the entire room and I got those people to give up their time so we could give him the time to kind of put out a roadmap for these council members to follow. Fortunately, we've been able to meet with them one-on-one to kind of lay this thing out, and the meeting did kind of take that direction where they're in line with having something done with what's called a right to lease, which basically the tenants are either given a 120-day period to go ahead and basically, if you want to give notice above 10%, they got to be given about 120 days notice. If they want to leave, they can leave. If they want to leave, if you want them to leave sooner, then you could offer some sort of relocation benefit for them to go ahead and move out sooner. They have the option of picking one or the other. Now, that's not final, and I'll get to exactly what happened at the end of the meeting yesterday. But that's one of the things that we're trying to promote. That's one of the things that we're trying to enact so that it's fair to both parties. Number one, the tenant is not asked to pack their stuff up and leave. And number two, they have the option of getting money now and packing their stuff up to leave. So it's an option. The landlords want to work with the tenants. What we're trying to avoid is the whole rent freeze or rent control. We cannot have those words mentioned in Glendale. And I actually had this discussion with LA Times after the meeting as far as how we have to work with these tenants and how this thing has to play out on its own. So with that said, as far as the final conclusion, and I just ask that one thing before I continue with this stuff. I don't want, though there's a lot of people that are pro-tenants and pro-landlord and everything else, I'm obviously against rent control. I'm a property owner myself. I own several units. I'm not here to sit there and say, no, rent control, and this is exactly how I want things to run. I understand where the tenants are coming from. They're frustrated. We're trying to work something out with them. However, if you're pro-tenant, please, I'm not in the whole political realm. I don't like politics. I don't like debates. I'm just expressing my perspective as far as this thing is concerned. So if you want to send me an email arguing my whole perspective, please don't unleash it on me. I'm just giving you my perspective. And by the way, I respect your opinions as well. I've spoken to a lot of tenants that came to the actual hearing to get their perspective on things. And the funny thing is, or not the funny thing, but the sad thing is, some of these tenants that came there holding up a sign, didn't know a word of English, were told, well, one mentioned to us that they were told that if they come and fight this, they get $400 off their rent, which is kind of sad in my opinion, giving a tenant a false promise that they're going to get a subsidized rent just by attending a meeting. So anyways, let's look past that. I want to go to what came out as far as the final conclusion. It's extremely confusing, so prepare yourself for this. Paula, 100% no rent control. She fought nail and tooth as far as that's concerned. Zara is for the whole putting a freeze, you may call it, for 3 months, along with Vrej, and also backed by Vartan. And here's the conclusion they all came to. By the way, just so you know, in their defense, none of the parties are for rent control. So that was one thing that came to a conclusion with the end of yesterday's meeting. No one's for rent control. What they do want to do is they want to create some sort of policy that's fair to the tenants. Because this is so intricate and because there's so many details that go behind this, what they have decided to do is, since Paula did not vote yes, and since Ara Najarian's out, and they have 3 votes in favor of this 3-month period of this so-called moratorium, what's going to happen is effective December the 20th. It's already confusing. Effective December 20th, a month from now, for 2 months through February 28th, you cannot raise rents more than 5% from September 18, 2018. There you have it. Good luck trying to solve that puzzle. It literally takes a mathematician to try to figure this thing out. So essentially what happens is if you've gone ahead and raised rents after September 18, 2018, and it's 5%, if it's greater than 5%, you essentially have to go ahead and credit that back based on this language. It's going to get even more interesting in just 1 second. This, by the way, Vartan made the motion that this does not continue after February the 28th. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting. In order to endorse any ordinance, you need a resolution. There was never a resolution yesterday. So all this discussion about what's happening from next month on the 28th through February the 28th is somewhat irrelevant because there was never a final resolution. So you've had these mixed feelings of people walking out of this room, excited, upset, confused on the most part, trying to figure out what the heck came out of this whole thing. And it was just after midnight when this decision was made, and to be quite frank, I was confused myself until I was able to piece the stuff together, call a few of the council members, and discuss this openly with them to see exactly what's happening here because I want to give the information out to you guys. So there you have it. That's the final resolution. I've tried to minimize it and make it as simple as possible. This thing that they're trying to enact does not take into effect until the 28th of December. It goes through February the 28th, but it's effective as of September the 18th. Now, my argument is, let's assume for a moment the tenant is frustrated. They have been given a notice to have their rents increased beyond that 5% rate. By the time they go back and forth and try to police this and regulate this, it's going to create chaos for one. It's going to create confusion between the landlords and the tenants because I myself have been to all these meetings, the last two big meetings, and this stuff is confusing for myself as far as how they're going to enforce it, how they're going to go ahead and put this together. The staff has to go ahead and put this all and make it, basically, it's going to be some sort of law they're going to try to pass. And I don't know how they're going to police this. And by the time they get down to figuring this stuff out, it's going to be February before we know it. So there you have it. That's the result of this complete mess. What I was pressing them on is, look, rates on commercial properties are going up. Inventory is going to start going up. The natural law of supply and demand will always prevail. The rents will eventually stabilize to where they need to be. Well, not the problem, but what Glendale has been experiencing is this massive inflation, which is an incredible thing. I'm in support of the property owners and the future property owners. It's all about getting the property values as high as possible. Let's face it, Glendale is now a very, very desirable place to live in. It always has been, but now even more so, it's harder to get in. I understand the elderly need help. I understand there's people that are being taken advantage of, but it's a right for the landlord to raise their rents to what they have to be at. Now, it's unfair for them to do certain things, but there's other options available. There are other properties available. But I'm not here to push my opinion on others. I'm here to discuss what came out of yesterday's meeting and what we're fighting so hard for so that the property values in Glendale do not get compromised as a direct result of what happened yesterday and 2 weeks prior. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead. And what I ask from you guys is let's leave the council members and the mayor alone for the next week or two. They've gone through a lot, all of them. And let them take a breather as far as this thing's concerned. I'll provide you with their email address and go ahead and tell them exactly how you feel, your concerns. You are part of the city if you live in Glendale. So if you want to voice out your opinions, you want to voice out what you think they should be doing, they're still preparing this thing. So there's nothing concrete. There's absolutely nothing going on actually because we don't have a resolution. So as confusing as it sounds, it is that confusing. I ask that you don't go viral with this thing. This is strictly an email that's been sent out or it's posted on some pages on social media. But this is where we're at with this whole thing. So with that said, I hope that within the next few weeks they can make some reasoning as far as what came out of yesterday's meeting. But until then, this is what we're dealing with. This is what came out of it. And believe it or not, this was about 7 hours yesterday, and the prior one was about 12 hours. And there you have it. We all came out of there tired. We came out of there frustrated. We came out of there confused. And as much reasoning that we try to expel into this whole conference or the whole meeting, this is a direct result of what came out of this to try to find a happy medium as far as things concerned. I personally think the city needs to go ahead and get some experts on board and to actually have them try to come up with a plan that's going to be reasonable, that's going to be justifiable, and it's not going to hurt the Glendale market. So there you have it. Any other questions or anything else you have, please don't hesitate to email me at albert@realestate123.com. You can always call me at 818-244-2939. And I've tried to do my best to explain as much as I can in this video so that you guys kind of get a grasp as far as what happened yesterday and what is to come in the months ahead. Personally, I think nothing's really going to happen, and I think this is a little bit of a wake-up call for both landlords and tenants to work with each other. As long as we can work with each other, all this stuff will come together things will work itself out. If we're going to go out there and gouge tenants and tenants are going to sit there and fight us, it's going to be a big mess. And if we enact rent control, let's not even go there as far as the extremities, as far as how bad that's going to lead us in terms of the results as a direct result of having a rent control in place in the city of Glendale. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So there you have it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you for being patient. I also apologize for yesterday. I zipped through that email. I typed up as much as I can. For those of you that got my email, and I read the emails, there were so many typographical errors, but you know what? I try to get the word out, and I try to get as much information I can before I went out there. So have a wonderful night. Thank you again for listening to this long video. I hope I was helpful, but you should be seeing more posts coming on through the city's website. And also LA Times did a whole write-up as well, so that should be posted as well. I'm thinking by tomorrow as far as my perspective with the whole outcome from yesterday. Albert Harapetian, Arbitrage Real Estate Group. Have an awesome day. Take care, everyone.